Hey, do you prefer to find the joy in life, or do you just want some help with that? If so, you're in the right place. So come on in and join the Joy Bunny clan. This is the My Slice of Life podcast. Hello and welcome back to the My Slice of Life podcast. This is season 4, and this season I am asking the question, what's so super about the supernatural? And this week, friends, we are looking at the Shimmer people. Welcome to the My Slice of Life podcast. If you've never heard of the Shimmer Man or Glimmer Man, Shimmer people, there's a lot of different names on the internet about these things. You're in for a treat today, I can assure you. And stick around because I do have a true personal story about encountering one of these things, believe it or not, which I would like to share with you today. For a long time, apparently these things were never reported. And now it seems to be encounters with these are being talked about online and reported more and more often. And I want to go through a couple of these reports that I found online first. One of the main things people talk about when they see these things, they describe it as Predator from the movie. Now, I'm taking it you've seen the movie. And I'm not talking about when you can actually see the alien thing, you know, with all the weird bits coming off them, but you know the bit when it's cloaked, it's see-through, but you can still see it move, you can see it shape through the trees. That's what people are reporting, that part of the Predator movie, that's what they're seeing. Another way it's been described is like heat rising off a surface, and that's one of the ways, like it shimmers, you know, on a really hot day, and you can see that shimmering on the tarmac, that kind of thing. That's what they're describing. A big question everybody has is it something cloaked? And if so, why is it cloaked? If it's trying to hide itself, people are wondering, does that mean it's malevolent towards us? Surely if it meant us no harm, would it have to hide itself? Don't know. These are just some questions that are being asked. And one encounter I want to bring to you concerns somebody called Jan Maccabee. I think that's how you pronounce her name. It's quite a famous case. Apparently it's now in the book by David Paulides, and he does the missing 411, if you're aware of that. And this is what she described, and this is her story. So she'd set up a hunting stand in Ohio, which is where she's from. She's away hunting. It was the start of the season. She'd set up her stand about 15 feet up between the trees in a forested area, and she just sat and waited patiently. So, you know, she's sitting there. Time's passing, she's texting her pals, taking photos with her phone, that kind of thing. Then she noticed that the woods went silent. No noise whatsoever. Nothing. Birds had stopped. There was just nothing. She couldn't hear any rustling in the leaves or anything, and she felt very anxious suddenly, just really unnerved by the whole thing. Apparently she sent a text saying to somebody, something is wrong here. The woods just went dead silent. It's odd. Okay, so she was thinking at this point maybe it's a panther, a coyote or something like that, and her eyes were scanning the area, looking all over to see what was making this weird feeling in her and make the place go so silent. And then she noticed it was she described it as a weird visual effect that seemed to be moving across her field of vision about 20 feet away, and she described it as looking like a mirage in the desert. You know, it's there, but it's not there. So she removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes, you know, thinking, am I seeing things? Put her glasses back on, and it was still there. Travelled from left to right, in front of her, above the ground, eventually disappeared from sight, and when it had gone, gradually the animal sounds of the forest returned, and she did describe it as like the invisible creature in Predator. Now, like I say, it was mentioned by David Paulides, and if you know his 411 book and the videos that he makes, he talks about people who disappear without a trace and we don't know where they're going. So there is one theory being put out there. If these things are cloaking and they are hiding themselves, are they responsible for these people going missing? Are they taking people? Park that thought to the side, because there are quite a lot of similarities in these sightings. There's one that's totally different, but a lot of them it's very, very similar. They're being seen a lot in woodland, forested areas, where there's a lot of trees and near water. Also, a lot of this is what David Paulides has found in common with people who go missing when they're out hiking. So, just putting that out there, I'm not saying that's what it is, but it's a strange coincidence at the least. Now, another encounter I want to tell you about, this was posted by somebody called Christina Wheeler, and she described it as a humanoid that looked like upright water, which I thought was very interesting. And again, if you can imagine, if it was somebody standing up and they were made of water, in inverted commas, it would look kind of shimmery, that kind of moving. It's very hard to put into words, but if you can imagine that and picture that, I think that gives a really good idea of what she was talking about. She actually had her encounter after she'd separated from her husband. Now again, going back to the David Paulides theory, people are taken at this point of separation from his research has found that when you're out with a group, one person wanders off, or at some point there is a point of separation, that's when they're taken. So she had been separated from her husband. They had gone their separate ways just briefly, and then met up again. It was one of those, did you see that moments? So again, keep that in mind. Now, I've been calling it the Shimmer Man or Shimmer Beings. Some people refer to it as the Glimmer Man, and again they refer to it as the thing out of Predator. You see its general shape and its movement, but you don't see it. It's like a humanoid shape. You can't see facial features or specific details. And like I said, reports of these were quite rare, but it seems to be increasing lately, and I'm wondering why that is. And a lot of witnesses also report they have a feeling of overwhelming dread, have a sense of dread or just extreme anxiety when they're in the presence of this thing, just before they see it or when they actually see it. Whether that's panic, don't know, but how do you explain it if they have that feeling before they've even seen this thing? That I don't understand. Some people have actually reported they felt like it was trying to communicate with them, but they don't know what the intentions were. Now, obviously, these people are coming back and telling the tale, so maybe is it something looking out for us? Watching over us to make sure we don't get taken by whatever it is that is making people disappear. Are they guardians? Are these the good guys, but because we associate it with the Predator film, we've labelled it as a predator? Food for thought. Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of theories around the internet because we don't know. And if we don't know, we're just going to come up with theories and ideas. A lot of people think these things could be interdimensional beings or just extraterrestrial. I say just extraterrestrial. There's so much talk about all this now. It's almost feeling normal now. For other people, they associate it with paranormal phenomena such as UFO sightings, crop circles, and all sorts of unexplained occurrences. Now, there was a very famous reporting I want to just briefly let you know about, in case you haven't heard it, because it was new to me. I hadn't looked this stuff up before, which surprises me, and I will explain that a little later. But there was this woman from Illinois, and her story was actually published in Journal News Online, so you can go and find it and read it for yourself. But her first encounter happened when she was about 5 years old. It was in the autumn in southern Illinois, and she was looking for arrowheads at the edge of the woods behind her grandmother's house. Now, a bit of a quote here. She says, I'd been out there for quite a while because I remember I had a pretty decent size hole going. Remember, she was digging. When something caught my eye up in the tree that I was next to. I almost don't know how to explain it, but it looked almost like a heat wave coming off the branch of the tree, and I'm staring at this heat wave and I realised it was a human shape. So here I am, 5 years old, wondering, why is there an invisible man in the tree? I remember feeling scared but unsure what to do. Then it started moving and making a faint clicking sound, and that's when she ran inside. Now, that's when she was 5, but when she was 12, she apparently watched the movie Predator and looked at that, and that's when she was saying, oh my God, that's what I saw. That's the thing that I saw outside. Fast forward. She's a grown woman now. She's got 3 children of her own. She moved into a new apartment on the outskirts of town, and it's got a small wooded area nearby. Now I'm going to go back to quotes again. Okay, she says, one night I was up late doing laundry and stuff after the kids went to bed. I decided to take a smoke break before I went to sleep. I'm back there on the porch and I started hearing this faint clicking sound. Now, she initially expected another visit from a groundhog, which apparently she'd encountered earlier on. Back to the quote. I didn't see any groundhog or movement from the ditch, so I go back to smoking my cigarette. The faint clicking sound keeps happening, and a slight shift of movement makes me look up into the trees to the left of my porch. It's there. The same invisible thing I had seen when I was 5. It's like a distortion in a humanoid shape. Crouched down on the branch with an arm out holding onto the trunk of the tree, I couldn't believe it. So at this point she ran inside, locked all the doors and windows, turned off the living room light, thinking, I'm going to get a wee sneaky look at this thing without it getting me. And that's when a neighbour's dog apparently comes running across the yard, starts barking at the tree, and at the same bit that she'd seen this shape, and she thought it was really weird because this dog is apparently not a barker. So that was a bit odd, and it wasn't until the dog went away and the owner called the dog back, and, she kind of calmed down, but she says she didn't sleep that night and she's never seen it again. Now, another post by somebody called Odin's Raven, 1976, very cool name. I'm not sure if this is on Reddit. This is on Reddit. So they were out the back getting fresh air. Again, they noticed the sound and atmosphere changed and saw 2 bright white eyes, and then they disappeared really quickly. He said, the more I looked in that direction, I could make out the outline of a human-like figure, but I could see through it, and I watched it move slowly across my garden. I lost track of it, but then heard 3 thumps, but not loud thumps, but it's just as if it had climbed the fence and left. It gave me no weird feeling of fear, as if it had just come to have a look at me and then it left. I'm 46, I've never seen anything like this. This was in Scotland. Keep that in mind, please. And the last story that I found online that I want to share with you, again, this is on Reddit. It's from Comprehensive Row 3402. Interesting name. And they say, in my 2nd floor condo in San Diego several years back, I was reading in bed and looked up to see a very tall, 6 to 7 foot, lanky man made out of a heat mirage. He looked like the rest of the room, but was solid enough to make out his form. I looked up to see him at the foot of my bed. He walked up to the side of my bed, over to the bookcase at the head of the bed, knocked twice and was gone. His arm seemed to swing in slow motion as he walked. It lasted 10 to 15 seconds, which felt like forever, but was also over so fast I could barely react to my shock. It made no sense to me whatsoever why he'd even been there. He didn't have any kind of evil feeling to him. So, as you can hear there are a few similarities, and that last one at the end was in somebody's bedroom, which is different. That's the only one I've heard of like that. All the others are near trees, in trees, wooded areas, quite often near water, and this clicking sound also seems to occur in a lot of the stories that I came across online. People have this sense of dread or fear or extreme anxiety. What are these things? Now, I don't know what they are, but I want to share with you now just a very brief story. I told you I had a personal account of one of these things, so I just want to tell you what happened. This was about 3 years ago, and I was just walking with my son. Now, where we live is a lovely walk you can take round the local river. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour. There's a couple of bridges that you have to cross because obviously you're going over a river. But there's a couple of streams that lead into the river, and there's little bridges, to about 2 that I can think of, that lead into the main river. And if you blink, you miss them because they're part of the path, you know. So we were walking round this day and it was sunny. So it was summertime, I remembered that much. We were having a lovely walk around, talking, chatting away, as we do. We talk a lot in our walks. And we came up to, we'd done most of the walk and we'd gone over the first kind of mini bridge, you know, the one I was saying that goes over a stream, and we were coming up to the second one. Now, at the second one, when you look up, you're coming to the end of the path, and it's like a T, you go left or right. If you're going to do the full circle around the river, you go left. And at the end of that T, there is a wall, there's a high fence, and the town cemetery is actually behind that. But as we are approaching this little mini bridge over the little stream, my son's chatting away, completely oblivious, and I do tend to look up at the trees and the flowers. I'm a bit of a amateur forager, so I like to kind of look around and test myself, see if I can identify trees and so on. So as I looked up into this tree, something caught my eye, and the best way I can describe it is I could see it but I couldn't see it at the same time. It wasn't windy, there wasn't a breeze, but something moved and I could make out a hazy shape, and I totally get what they mean when they say it's like out the Predator movie. Yeah, you see it, but you don't see it. You can see the leaves of the tree, but you can see a hazy shape, like a heat wave. Now, this didn't look like a humanoid shape. It was quite square, and I would say it was about 3.5 feet in height, square-ish. And I looked at it, and there was no sound coming from it. Like, I mentioned the clicking. I wasn't aware. I don't remember hearing any clicking. I didn't get any sense of fear or the dread that other people have spoken about. Now, is that because my son was chatting away about normal things? Don't know. I wasn't on my own, so that could be a major factor here, the fact that I wasn't on my own. I just happened to be observant and saw this thing. And we just walked past. Nothing happened. I didn't scream. This is going to sound strange. I just sort of accepted it as being there. Didn't expect it to be there, but it's like, oh, that's weird. And she kept on walking. Not a, oh my God, what is that? Like you'd kind of think. It's like, oh, that's one of those weird things. I've seen that in the film. That looks unusual. Kept on walking. Now that's the only time I've seen it. And I'm thinking, why did I see a completely different shape to everybody else? And then I was thinking recently about it. And now I'm wondering, was it crouched in the tree? Now imagine if you're crouched in the branch of a tree and you're holding on, you will have that kind of square, not so much square, but kind of an oblong shape. So now I'm wondering, was he crouched in the tree, or it? I'm saying he, I don't know. But I did get the distinct impression from it that it was interested in us and watching, listening to us, almost like a childlike curiosity. I didn't get a feeling of danger or we better get the hell out of here. It was more like it was curious about us, just as I was curious about seeing it. So I wonder, what are these things? I genuinely, I don't know. Are they alien? I've heard another theory actually, which I forgot to mention. Some people are wondering if these are cloaked, and are they Bigfoot, dog men? If you don't know much about the dog men, I'll be coming to that at another episode. Is it a cloaked version of one of these other things that many people have seen in the scarier forms, and maybe some are benevolent and want to cloak so they don't frighten us? I don't know. Just a thought off the top of my head as I'm sitting here talking to you. But I would love to know your thoughts. I'd especially love to know, have you seen one of these? Do you know anybody else who's encountered this? Now, I did get in touch with the lovely Deborah Hatswell from BBR Investigations, and she got back to me and said that she's had a lot of reports very similar to mine. Now, I'm in Scotland, and one of those reports I gave you tonight that I found online was also in Scotland, but I've heard they're everywhere. There's loads in America, loads in England, so it's not specific to one place. So, dear listener, it's over to you. Let me know what you think. If you have any theories, ideas, encounters of your own, leave a comment. If you want to get in touch, you can do it through the blog. There's a contact form there. I would really love to know your thoughts on this one, especially since I've seen one. And I know what I saw. No, I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing anything stupid. I was out with my son having a lovely walk, and I've described to you as best I can what I saw. So that is our What's So Super About the Supernatural episode this week, my dear Joy Bunnies. Please have a look at the links below. You know what to do with them. They will take you to all sorts of wonderful super places without the spooky parts. Remember, if you're wanting to do your own podcast or advertise, I have links there for you too through the lovely people at Podbean to get you some special offers. But until next time, you take care of yourself.